responsible for bringing the mature poet to the highest honor and official recognition of the poetic genius. It is a representative of Victorian age, and the way how Tennyson had the influence of Dante's Inferno. Here, Ulysses is the hero of Homer's immortal epic Odyssey. He was the king of Ithaca, a rock island in Greek. So here you see that how Tennyson's Ulysses had the background of Dante's Inferno and Homer's immortal epic Odyssey. And here the hero Ulysses, and who is the king of Ithaca, and it's a rock island in Greek. The most eloquent and sagacious of the Greek heroes. Here Ulysses was part in the Trojan War. So here the way how he has this kind of background. In his voyage home at the end of the Trojan War, he met with many misfortunes which are described by Homer in the Odyssey. So here Tennyson had tried to bring that Homer's Odyssey. It's an epic, and Dante's Inferno. The hero was a king of Ithaca, and he was part of the Trojan War. And in his voyage back to his home, he suffered like anything, misfortunes. There were many other aspects which are representative of Homer's Odyssey. And he reached home 20 years after he had left home for Troy, and found his wife Penelope and his son still devoted to him. So when you look at that hero who is with this kind of eloquency and then sagacious nature of the Greek heroes, and who took part in the Trojan War, and he left his home for 20 years for this war, and when he had come back to his home, his wife and son, both of them devoted to him. So here it shows that heroic nature of Tennyson, as well as Dante's Inferno's sentiment of the poem, as well as Homer's immortal epic Odyssey. So when we go through all these, then how Tennyson's Ulysses is making sense of the historical background of the family, as well as the war, and the concerns of the epic Odyssey of Homer's, and then Dante's Inferno. All these are all background to the Ulysses poem. Dante's Inferno, Ulysses says, "Neither fondness for my son, nor reverence for my aged sir, nor the due love which ought to have gladdened Penelope, could conquer in me the ardor which I had to become experienced in the world." So here, Dante's Inferno, Ulysses is the central protagonist of this poem. And here he says that nothing can stop him to have the kind of commitment and to have the experience of the world. So here the poem had the touch of the epic Odyssey by Homer and Dante's Inferno of 26th canto, and then the family life of Ulysses. As a human being, he is part of the family, but he had tried to have the experience of the world. So when you look at the Ulysses, finds no utility in living an ideal life in his island kingdom of Ithaca in the company of his aged wife, compelled to rule over a savage people who do not know him. He even detests the idea of rest. So here when you look at that how there was a gap of 20 years, when he had come back to home, he does not like to rule the country and to be with this kind of family, and then he was in search of something else, and he even detests the idea of rest. It little profits that an idle king by the still herd among these barren crags match with an aged wife I meet and dole unequal loss unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. So here, as he wishes to say whatever he wants to live his life, the way how people ignores his victorious nature and with the aged wife, and then with this kind of whatever is awareness of the people's unconcerned nature, they are like savage. They do not have any kind of knowledge of the truth and reality of life. So here he says that I meet and dole unequal loss unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. So the people of that Ithaca, they do not know about the victorious nature of Ulysses, and they just sleep like that, and then you can understand how he had that kind of touch of the victorious nature, and living the life for noble cause, because he left his home, as well as whatever the family life, and then he took part in Trojan War. When you look at his personal life, which is making sense of his individuality, so he has enjoyed and suffered much to acquire a well-known reputation, and has explored various towns, observed manners, customs, and governments of different countries. He has gained the honor and respect in every phase of life, and has enjoyed the heroic feats along with his fellow warriors on the battlefield of Troy. So here, when you look at the 2 decades of his Trojan War tenure, he had experienced everything with his warriors. And he says, all times I have enjoyed greatly, have suffered greatly, both with those that loved me and alone, on shore and when, though through scudding drifts the rainy Hades vexed the dim sea. So here he is with this kind of self-exaltation that he has been with the experience of good and bad, and he suffered greatly, and then he loved that kind of heroic nature life, and then you can see that the way how he has that kind of proud of his reputation gained for his wanderlust. I am become a name for always roaming with a hungry heart. Though he gathered much knowledge, yet he affirms that knowledge is limitless and infinite. Knowledge enables a man to view the distant through an arc. So here he is talking about the knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Is it worldly knowledge or branches of knowledge, or what kind of he wishes to know about the world? So here he is much careful about the whatever the knowledge, and then he never and ever cares anything. So when you look at his whatever the concerns and commitments, as well as owning up the personal life more than the kingdom, as a king of Ithaca, and even the family, he suffered greatly, but he never and ever compromised with that war situation, which is nothing but life and death problem. He has been away from his family, and then he had that kind of heroic nature to wander here and there with his warriors and to experience the worldly knowledge. Yet all experience is an arc where through gleams that untraveled world, whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. Here he explores more whatever he had the experience as the unknown. Ulysses claims that it is foolish to cease exploring the unexplored, and to idle away and rest on past glories. So here, as a human being, we all will have that kind of complacency whenever you are going to achieve anything. But here, Ulysses is unlike a common man. He wishes to explore. He wishes to show that kind of his commitment to have that kind of life with this kind of great achievements, and he never and ever compromises with anything. So here he says that we should not worry about the past glories or sufferings, and we should not glorify and rest on past glories, and we should not be idle. So here, no, he has been trying to show that kind of how life force is making sense of that change of life from one place to the other place. So like that, he has been a wanderer with this kind of in search of the knowledge. He asserts that lives, piled on lives, are not sufficient for acquiring knowledge. Time is driving man towards death. So here, the way how day and hours, day, month, like that. Every day it's a challenge for us. But if you will be an ideal of your past glories, and if you will rest, it will not make sense. So here he always tries to counter argue that the life should be that means should be with this kind of life force. He never and ever stops exploring. So he is quite against to the limit of our human life. So when you look at that, how he is stretching into the explorations of unknown whatever the concerns of the knowledge, so or anything. So here he wants to acquire the knowledge. So he says that time always driving man towards death. Each moment is precious and should not be wasted in inactivity. So here, time and tide wait for none. So we should know that we have to have that kind of exploration and life force, and we have to excel our life with this kind of whatever the commitment of the time target oriented activity. We should not be in inactivity. We should not be idle. We should not be dull. We should not be somber. We should not be lazy. So like that, here he has been trying to say all these aspects of life, and the time always drives us towards the death. And here you see that the time saved from the jaws of death and brings new experience. So we should see that how the time is more important, and it is more precious than anything in this world. So here little remains, but every hour is saved from that eternal silence. Something more, a bringer of new things, and while it were for some 3 suns to store and hold myself, and this grey spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bound of human thought. So here, as and when you look at that, each and every stanza of this poem is making sense of that heroic nature of the Dante's Inferno, as well as Homer's epic Odyssey, and the king here, who is with this kind of staunch commitment of explorations of unknown things of his lifetime. So he never and ever compromises. So he says that we should follow knowledge like sinking stars beyond the utmost bound of human thought. So he never and ever compromises with the limitations of the ideal life, and he desires to give charge of his kingdom to his prudent son Telemachus. So here he is not a power monger. He is with this kind of stand of the in search of the knowledge, and he hand overs the charge of his kingdom to his prudent son Telemachus. The hero is content to let his son get on with his domestic chorus and religious observance. So here, when you look at the way how the king of Ithaca, who disowns the power politics and family life, and then he does not like to rule the savage people who are dull and no sleep, and they do not like to know what is what and who is he of with this kind of heroic nature. So here Ulysses and his mariners are old. He claims there is honor to be acquired and work to be done even in old age. So here does not matter old age for him. So here he says that we should not compromise in our youth as well as old age. He treats similarly whatever the youth is there in his life, and the old age is also similarly with the same kind of in search of the knowledge. So here, when you look at the ups and downs of his life of the Trojan War, and then he wishes to have that kind of whatever the in search of knowledge, and he says that to follow knowledge like sinking stars beyond that most bound of human thought. We are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are on one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So what is he saying here? With the kind of commitment of his whatever the expectations, explorations, and lifespan of time, we should have this kind of strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. We should not compromise with gray hair or whatever the old age keeping on our body. And here he is with this kind of stand that death is inevitable. One should not lament on rest on laurel, waiting for the end. So here, because I could not stop for death by John Keats, so why should we wait for that unknown guest? It always comes, whenever it comes, we should leave the world, but we should not wait for that unknown guest. So here, we should not compromise in our life, whether it is youth or any kind of age, no matter of anything. We should have this kind of commitment in our life, and we should not worry about the pains and pleasures, as well as we should not rest on laurels waiting for the end. So this is what the sun sets below the horizon, the moon emerges, and the roar of the sea is heard in the distance. Ulysses urges his companion sailors to set out with him on a final quest. So here, when you look at the way how all these aspects of the life of the Ulysses shows that heroic nature, as well as the epic concerns of the Odyssey, and then Dante's Inferno, are all into this kind of background, that how Ulysses is with this kind of life force, as we have seen in G.B. Shaw's Saint John. So here, when you look at that kind of acceleration and exploration, and how we have to have that kind of whatever the innovations in our life. So here the poem is basically expresses Tennyson's philosophy of life. So here Tennyson had that kind of touch of the philosophy, and he wishes to philosophize the reader, that how the king who is with this kind of stand, uncompromised, unmatched personality, who is in search of knowledge and who wishes to explore the unknown things in his life till the end of his life. He wishes to wander here and there in search of the knowledge. So here, as and when we know that the in search of the knowledge, to follow knowledge like sinking stars beyond the utmost bound of human thought, and here it reminds that to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So all these are all with this kind of strong commitment, willpower. So he has that kind of self-awareness and life force, and how it should be changed with this kind of burning desire, and how he had tried to philosophize, and it shows that his son's whatever the duty to serve the people and the kingdom, and how he disowns the power politics, and then he made his son as a king of Ithaca. Like that, here the hopes to meet his dead in company of the Trojan War actually is. In this fine monologue, Tennyson mediates and ponders creatively upon the death of Hallam, Arthur Henry Hallam. The poem was completed within 3 weeks of Tennyson's hearing the fatal news of his friend. So here, when you look at all these, then you can understand how Tennyson had realized that the importance of the human life, and the way how we should have this kind of touch of our commitment and concerns of the human life with this kind of in search of the knowledge. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Tennyson had tried to touch the philosophy of human life, and here how he had the influence of Homer's Odyssey, as well as Dante's Inferno, and then here he had tried to philosophize each and everything of the concerns of the human life. So here, when you look at all these aspects of here Ulysses, then one can understand how it is with this kind of stand up for human life with all these aspects. So here, when you look at all these, then you can understand that Tennyson had tried to look at all these aspects of our human concern to understand. One can realize this in one's life, that to know how our life should be with that kind of purposeful, and with the awareness of the knowledge of the world. So like that, here in this poem, you can see the way how he had concluded the poem with this kind of knowledge, and then uncompromised nature of human life. So here, each and every aspect of this poem shows that it is a Victorian poem where social consciousness opposes escapism, idealism, conflict between science and religion, and love of nature. So here, the way how that kind of social consciousness is making sense of the poem of that Victorian age, and then it is more typical to understand that how it is quite against to the ideal escapism and idealism and conflict between science and technology, or religion and love of nature. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Ulysses had tried to bring to the notice of the reader that to have this kind of concerns of the social consciousness in this poem, that whatever Tennyson had tried to show us with this kind of concerns of the human life. So here Ulysses is with this kind of social consciousness, and represents the energy and rest curiosity of the Victorians, with the resolution to leave nothing unseen, unknown, and unexplored. The poem embodies the modern passion for knowledge. So here we should know that how Tennyson had touched each and every aspect of this social, political, economical, and cultural aspects, as well as the human life force, and which is with this kind of commitment and uncompromised nature to know the world, as well as the knowledge of all the aspects. So here it shows that how Ulysses is making sense of that knowledge, to follow knowledge like sinking stars beyond the utmost bound of human thought. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Tennyson had tried to realize that human life with this kind of philosophy of our life with this kind of endless knowledge to have in our life. So here we should have this kind of concerns of the human life, and to know how Tennyson had tried to philosophize this poem with this kind of a king who is a warrior, and who had that kind of touch of the victorious nature, and then who had that kind of commitment to serve the purpose of his life, and then he wishes to open the eyes of the reader to know how we have to have that kind of philosophy in our human life. So when you look at all these, then you can understand here the poem with this kind of critical analysis, as well as how it is with this kind of whatever the concerns of the human life. So Ulysses reveals a brilliant landscape of dusk, typically of the Victorian age. So here with this I can conclude the poem, and then we'll move to another poem. Hello.
Yes, sir, we are following.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. We are ready. Yes, sir.
So I
Yes, sir,
yeah,
we follow.
what is the theme? What is the theme of the poem? Hello. Yes.
Reveals brilliant landscape of human life and it serves the purpose of life.
Okay. So we should have this kind of awareness of our self and
Very much
society.
thank you.
Yeah. Hello. So here you look at that, how he had the heroic nature and uncompromised life with this kind of all the material benefits. So here he wishes to have that kind of life with the knowledge, and then you can see how he had tried to realize the human life with this kind of philosophy. Now we'll go to another poem that what is the next poem? Hello. Yes.
Don't know, sir.
Oh, you do not have the book. You
Robert
have the book.
Browning, my last
My
Duchess.
last Duchess. My last Duchess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Robert
So yeah,
Browning.
my last Duchess.
yeah. Can anyone of you read about Robert Browning, a biography? Can anyone of you please?
Robert Browning, English writer, born in Camberwell, England in 1812, died in 1889 in Venice, Italy, was one of the most influential poets of the 19th century. Browning's My Last Duchess, which was written in 1842, was included in the anthology Dramatic Lyrics. A quintessential Victorian poet, Browning's poem epitomized his interest in issues such as marriage and gender relations, which were prevalent in medieval Britain. The poem deals with the lives of a medieval count and his wife. The poem is cited as one of the best examples of the use of dramatic monologue.
Yeah. So here we have seen that dramatic monologue in our background. That how a single person who always tries to represent something else about someone, and then he never and ever cares anything. He always tries to express his views. So with this kind of dramatic monologue is established in Robert Browning's My Lost Duchess. And here the poet he had that kind of touch of all these whatever the aspects of the marriage and then gender relations, and how he had tried to bring to the notice of the reader that the way how this dramatic monologue is making sense of all these aspects of the poem. So when you look at the historical background of this poem, it is believed that while in Italy in 1838, Browning, who was fascinated with the Italian Renaissance, must have come across a biography of Alfonso II, 1533 and 1598, fifth Duke of Ferrara, and composed My Last Duchess based on this. So here it has the background of a Duke of Ferrara. Okay, and then the subtitle Ferrara of the poem My Last Duchess reveals historical context of this work, and here it is making sense of that Dukes has a 900-year-old name and is clearly a patron of the arts as revealed by vast collection of paintings and sculptures. So here when you look at this kind of historical background of the poem, then you can see how Robert Browning had tried to bring that Duke of Ferrara as well as his relationship with his whatever the marriage and well as well as the gender relations. So here, when you look at all these, then it revealed by his vast collection of paintings and sculptures. However, Browning does not make any reference to the Duchess in the painting as being a member of the royal de Medici family in any part of the poem. So here you look at that sculpture and then paintings of that collections, and here he never and ever compromised with anything to say call a spade. Alfonso II, Duke of Ferrara, married the 14-year-old Lucrezia de Medici, the daughter of two very important and powerful Italian monarchs in 1558. 3 days after the wedding, Alfonso left her for a period of 2 years. She died at the age of 17, within 2 years of the Duke's ascension to the throne. The circumstances of her death were mysterious, but it was not proved that the Duke was responsible for her death. Browning also shrouds the identity and the death of his Duchess in mystery. He does not clearly indicate that the Duchess is dead, but leaves the reader to draw her own conclusions. So here you look at Browning had that kind of creativity and critical analysis of the poem, that how this dramatic monologue is making sense of its representation of a person who is with these whatever their qualities. And here he left to the reader to know what is what of the conclusion of the poem. So here, in the opinion of historians, 4 years after the death of Lucrezia de Medici, Alfonso started negotiating for the hand of the daughter of the then court of Tyrol with one of his servants. It can be inferred that the Duke of Ferrara, his last duchess, the count with whose servant Ferrara discusses remarriage and a dowry, and the new fair daughter who appeared in the poem are historical. However, the painter Pandolf and the sculptor class of Innsbruck are fictitious, and the events as they appear in the poem are apparently Browning's own interpretation of what actually took place. So here when you look at this kind of background of the poem, that how the poem is making sense of his marriage, and then how he wishes to show his concern towards his first wife, and then how he wishes to have his marriage and another one. Like that here, my last is a dramatic monologue delivered by the Duke of Ferrara to a servant of a count whose daughter Duke is desirous of making his next wife. So here we look at the poem has all the typical characteristic of dramatic monologue. The speaker is obviously different from the poet. The audience does not make an appearance in the poem, but is simply implied, and bringing the narrator's character to light is the most important intention of the poet. So here the poet always tries to disown is whatever the characteristic features, and he is a speaker, and he never and ever assumes that their audience are not and here he wishes to bring that narrator's character to light. Light is the most important intention of the poet. So here when you look at the way how it is composed in rhyming pentameter lines, and the sentences and other grammatical units do not conclude at the end of the lines. As a result, the rhymes do not give a sense of closure when they occur, but rather remain a subtle driving force behind. So here when you look at all these form and style of the poem shows that Browning uses AABB rhyme scheme, and then it is very common in ballads and songs. And here he had employed the highlights and the irony of Duke's latter remark. And then here you can see the skill in speech, the way how the speaker is with this kind of eloquence and flourishing expression of the use of the language and all. So here the Duke uses the force of his personality to make his horrifying disclosures seem intriguing. And here the spellings spilling over the lines seem to demonstrate the control that the speaker exercises on the conversation. The style and structure of this poem play a significant part in the effect of the poem, and here it is with this kind of suitable for the poem as a dramatic monologue, and the Duke of Ferrara is explicitly revealed. This trait of the Duke surfaces especially in the conversation, where he seems to be dictate and the actions of the person he is talking to with comments such as, "Will it please you sit and look at her? Will it please you rise and nay, we will go together down, sir." So here the way how he exchanges his views with the audience, he assumes that there may be audience, may not, but he always tries to narrate the story. And here he, as a speaker, he always draws our attention towards his speech, whatever the skill and the way how he had used the language. there you can see that how you are going to drop into that. So the speaker of this poem, is the Duke of Ferrara. Addressing second character, a representative of unidentified count, whose daughter the Duke, proposes to marry. The Duke is showing the count's agent a portrait of his earlier wife. She was a beautiful woman, but the Duke suspected that she was unfaithful. So here, when you are looking at that kind of marriage as well as gender relations, how we had the touch of this kind of suspecting nature, and then he is talking about that his wife who is unfaithful, and here the Duke showing the count's agent a portrait of his earlier wife. So like that, here you can see how he had tried to say that his unfaithful wife's character, and he felt that she did not give enough importance to him and his high social rank, and treated him just like she would any other person. So here he is with this kind of whatever the unconcerned nature of his wife, and he always tries to say that she does not cares him, and then and there is no any kind of such human relationship, and he was frequently disgusted by her actions, which he felt exceeded the mark, but could not lower himself to communicate this to her. Finally, driven by the fact that she did not limit her smiles only to him, he gave commands which ensured that all smiles stopped. What the commands really were is not made explicit in the poem, but whatever they were, the Duchess is no longer present in the Duke's life, and he contemplates his next marriage. So here, when you look at the dramatic monologue as a poet, here the speaker always tries to emerge with this kind of stand of the speech, that to draw the attention from the listeners or audience, and he assumes that somebody is there to listen or to know. So here the setting of the poem is the art gallery of Duke of Ferrara, that has a painting of his previous wife hung on the wall, covered by a curtain. As the monologue opens, the audience is given a description of a portrait of Duke's previous wife. That is my last Duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. So the way how he is drawing our attention with this kind of use of the diction, as well as the way how he had tried to establish that kind of disclosures, seem intriguing, horrifying disclosures. So he is saying something else. We may assume that he is talking about somebody else who is absent. That's my last Duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. So the face of that his wife is showing with this eyes that she is alive. The opening tone of the poem is quite cheerful and untroubled. It draws our attention that he is going to describe his horrifying disclosures, seem intriguing personality, to make his the way how he had that kind of whatever the concerns of her of his life and wife, and then the tone is with this kind of clue as to the real motive behind the narrative. It appears as though a widower is discussing the painting of his former wife and her beauty. The poem progresses. The listener begins to discern a change in the Duke's tone. So how gradually changes the tone of the speaker, and it is a critique of his a former wife, and as well as the character, and it reveals Paul's manages to expose his own malevolent personality. So with this kind of beginning, and then there will be a change in tone and the use of the language, and how he wishes to disclose all the drawbacks of that and then reader realizes that the young Duchess Paul's were qualities like kindness, And then here it is the irony of the poem emerges as the reader realizes. So here you can see that the way how he had that kind of personal life, as well as marriage and the gender relations. And here you can see that the way how the duke also uses the description of his former wife and her untimely end to serve as a warning to the emissary of the count about the fate that awaits his future wife in case not conform to the behavior expected from her. So like that, here you can see how the poem is making sense of it's whatever the concerns of the marriage and the gender relations of that. And then when you look at all these, then you can see that Duke character is depicted as a jealousy, possessive, obsessed, arrogant, cruel, and greedy man. And here he wants to control and possess everything, even his wife. So here, when you look at the way how possessive pronoun, my last duchess, in the title, the first line is a clear indication of this desire. So he owns up his former wife as a duchess, and then here he changes his tone, and the way how the painting covers with this kind of further clue to the duke's selfish and jealous traits. He tells the listener, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but the curtain is a method employed by the Duke to control his wife even when she is no more. So when you look at the way how Robert Browning had this kind of touch of covering with this kind of whatever the nature which is implied and which is unexposed by the person who had the marriage, and how he had experienced his whatever the gender relationship, and then how that wife was unconcerned to him. So like that, here you can see since he finds the idea of other men admiring her beauty intolerable, and he retains the power to decide who will be allowed to look at her by hiding the painting behind a curtain. So here he is obsessed to state is betrayed by the nervous characteristics of his speech. And here he repeatedly comes back to the same topic again and again, and he repetitive phrases, as if alive there she stands, will it please you, and calling that spot of joy. Here he is obsessed about his height. He stands because the duchess stands on the wall, and he requires his listener to sit, rise, and walk downstairs alongside. He generally hates stooping because it would make him lose his sense of pride. So as a duke, he wishes to have the honor and respect, but it was not there with his wife. And then sense of pride was with this kind of ego, and then he himself tries to disown that wife who is unconcerned to is whatever the proud of his stature. And here he is always tries to say that he is ready to forego a duke's superior stature and go together down with the servant of the count. His greed overrides his pride of noble lineage, and he shamelessly bargains for a dowry. So here you can see that the way how he had this kind of touch of all these aspects of whatever is marriage and gender relations, and then how he repeatedly reveals that scant respect he has for women in his monologue. And here individuality of the duchess by not referring to her by name throughout the poem. So here he does not like to mention the name, and here you can see that the way how he is with this kind of repetitions with scant respect. And then the way how he disowns this kind of loyalty as a husband. That's my lost duchess painted on the wall, the word that seemed to reduce the woman once his wife to a thing on a wall. The word lost seems to imply that he regards duchess as a part of the series of possessions that he continues to purchase when the old one loses its value. The Duke viewed the Duchess, even when she was alive, as a two-dimensional figure. As a two-dimensional figure lacking depth. For him, she is just a beautiful face, and he does not focus on her mental faculties or emotions. The Duke says, "I call that piece a wonder now." So here he has been trying to romanticize that advertisement of a woman, here Duchess, and he does not like to name her, and he always tries to say that whatever her unconcerned nature, and it is a derogatory reference to call the duchess as that piece. So here you can see that how he has been trying to reduce her to an object, how he had tried to reduce the value of woman with this kind of that piece. So when you look at the way how he had that kind of touch of whatever the disloyalty, as well as reducing her as a piece, that piece like that. He shows that with this kind of whatever the unconcerned nature. And here you can see that the Duke tries to portray the weakness of the Duchess character, but in reality succeeds in doing just the opposite. The sweet nature of the Duchess is revealed in the following lines. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy she had a hurt, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, it was all one, my favor at her breast. So here the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bow of cherries, some officious fool broke in on the orchard of for her. The white mule she rode with round and the terrace, all and each would draw from her like the approving speech or blush, at least she thanked men. So here how that kind of disloyalty and betrayal of her youth by her blushes, and then spots of joy. And when someone compliments her or does her a service, she is full of jest and delights in small things, like a spring of flowers from the Duke of her bosom, or a sunset, or a courteous gift of some cherries from the trees, or the white mule which she rode round the terrace. She rewards everybody, including the Duke, with sweet smiles. Her humility and general good nature is obvious. So here you can see that how he had tried to reduce the value of his wife, and saying that that piece, and how she concerns with the others, and how she shows that kind of pleasing expressions, but no, she is disloyal, and with that kind of unconcerned nature to her husband. So here the Duchess failed to serve the purpose of the Duke, but she always with this kind of pleasure seeking by others. So here she is with this kind of a representation of that piece. And here he always says that the way how she is with this kind of unconcerned nature. So here she lacks the artifice to flatter the Duke continually. She is too inexperienced to perceive his indignation at her open display of emotions. She pays for this most probably with her life. The Duke gives commands to put an end to all her smiles forever. So here you can see that the man and woman relationship in a family, as a husband and wife, how they should have this kind of human relationships. But if there will be a break, and how the command will end the life of a woman in a family or marriage life. That here you can see that Duchess ends her life with this command of the Duke, and he ignores as a woman of his life as a wife, and then he always tries to say that the Duke is disowned by his wife. So here, the Duchess, who failed to serve the purpose of her, as a wife to her husband, as well as, and then how she ignores that law, whatever the familial relationships, but she cares others, and she pleases, like anything. So like that, here you can see the way how the height of aesthetic achievement and humanism particularly fascinated Browning and his contemporaries. Here you can see the way how Italian Renaissance representing and the characters and describing his picturesque historical background. So here he had that kind of subtle thought in subtle expression, and here you can see how he ignored that hidden anger, and how he is with this kind of representation of that the Duke as this that piece, like that he had that kind of psychological dimensions of the poem is powerful. And in this poem you can see how Robert Browning had tried to bring to the notice of the reader that to involve in each and every line, to know how it should be interpretative and interrogative of that Duchess unconcerned nature towards her husband. So here you can see that Duchess draws our attention whether she is with the unconcerned nature, or she was ended her life with the command. It is up to the reader to know that the male chauvinism, patriarchal society, and the way how command always ends the cheerful nature of the Duchess. And here the command is the representation of male chauvinism, and that kind of reducing the value of the woman with this kind of that kind of peace. Like that, here in this poem, the reader will analyze and interpret and interrogate all these men and women relationships of marriage and gender bias. All these are all into this kind of poem, to understand how the poet had tried to bring to the notice of the reader to understand all these aspects from the society, as well as family, as well as from the gender, as well as marriage. Like that, here you can understand how Robert Browning had the touch of this dramatic monologue to bring to the notice of the that kind of characteristic features of the personality of family, as well as the marriage, and how gender is with this kind of good and bad relationships. So when you look at this this poem is making sense of our interpretation as an individual, and we can interrogate whether he had that kind of arrogant nature to hide his angry against her, or she was with that kind of unconcerned nature, and how this marriage made them to break their human relationships. Is it because of the hatred, or beauty, or love, or that could be loyalty, disloyalty, or faith, or that could be any kind of thing between men and women. So when you look at all these, then you can see how this poem, My Last Duchess, is making sense that he is with this kind of possessive pronoun my, and says that that piece. So how he owns and disowns at last to reduce the value of his wife because of command, or male chauvinism, and gender bias. Like that, here there are multiple aspects into this poem to say how the poet had the touch of his personal whatever the concerns of marriage as well as gender. So when you look at Robert Brownie's poems, My Lost Duchess and Alfred Tennyson's Ulysses, then you can understand how the Victorian poets are with this background of their socio-political, economical, and cultural aspects. So here you can see that the way how the Duke of Ferrara had the touch of this kind of the personal life with whatever the unconcerned nature of women. So here he had tried to explore that invisibility of the unconcerned nature of a woman, or is it the command made him to write this poem. So here if you go through this, then you can understand how marriage makes sense of the unity and that kind of whatever the family relations will have this kind of concern and unconcerned nature of our human life. So with this I conclude the poem, and then we'll see the next poem in next class. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'll stop this
Yes,
poem here,
sir.
and
Yes,
then
we can hear.
we'll see next class the next poem. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, and we'll join tomorrow at 9:30.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.